We've all heard the term Cold War, but what exactly does it mean? Unlike most wars, this one wasn't fought with guns and soldiers, but with ideology, politics, and the ever-present fear of nuclear annihilation. For almost 50 years, the world held its breath as two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, engaged in a global struggle for dominance. The Cold War began in the ashes of World War II. With Europe in ruins, the U.S. and the Soviet Union emerged as the two dominant powers. But they were far from allies. The U.S. represented capitalism and democracy, while the Soviets stood for communism. These contrasting ideologies quickly turned into rivalry as both sides vied for influence over post-war Europe. In 1946, Winston Churchill famously declared that an Iron Curtain had fallen across Europe, dividing it into the Communist East and the Democratic West. The world was split into two opposing blocs, and tensions began to rise. As the Cold War escalated, both superpowers engaged in an arms race, especially in the development of nuclear weapons. The mere thought of mutually assured destruction kept the Cold War from turning hot, but that didn't mean it was without violence. In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. The U.S. discovered Soviet missiles stationed in Cuba, just 90 miles from American shores. For 13 tense days, the world watched as negotiations unfolded. Thankfully, the crisis was resolved peacefully, but it demonstrated how high the stakes were during the Cold War. The Cold War also played out in proxy wars around the globe. Rather than fighting each other directly, the U.S. and the Soviet Union backed opposing sides in conflicts like the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Soviet-Afghan War. These battles may not have taken place on American or Soviet soil, but they were very much a part of the Cold War struggle. But the Cold War wasn't just about military might. It was also a competition of technological prowess. The space race became a critical front. The Soviets shocked the world by launching Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, in 1957. The U.S. responded by landing a man on the moon in 1969, signaling their victory in this particular battle of the Cold War. By the 1970s, both sides realized the need to reduce tensions, leading to a period of détente, a relaxation of Cold War hostilities. Agreements like the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks sought to curb the nuclear arms race. But despite these efforts, the rivalry continued. It wasn't until the 1980s, with the rise of Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, that the Cold War truly began to wind down. Gorbachev's reforms, known as glasnost and perestroika, paired with increasing demands for freedom in Eastern Europe, led to the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. Just 2 years later, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, marking the official end of the Cold War. And so, without a final battle, this war of ideologies came to an end. The Cold War may be over, but its legacy continues to shape the world we live in today.